Are you interested in the struggles of our children and the struggles that they face in the American classroom each and every day? Well, let me tell you about the first season of Teach the Babies with Dr. David Johns. It examines the impact of one of the most consequential Supreme Court cases of all time. I'm talking Brown v. the Board of Education. In each and every episode, Dr. David Johns talks to incredible educators and leaders as they all grapple with the question, has Brown's promise been fulfilled? Let me tell y'all something about Dr. David Johns. First of all, he's my friend. He is one of the most brilliant and revolutionary leaders of our community and society at large, and I truly, truly mean that. This brother is deep, and he is absolutely emphatically impassioned about our babies. This is a can't-miss deep dive into one of the most important issues facing our country, which is teaching our babies. And y'all should know that before he was a revolutionary national leader, David Johns started his career where? In the classroom, actually teaching the elementary school babies. I want you to like, subscribe, and share, and most importantly, listen as Dr. Johns and his guest explore these questions with you. You can find Teach the Babies with Dr. David Johns wherever you listen to podcasts. Good morning, jurors. This is a special surprise bonus episode for you. Yes, I am still, of course, on maternity leave, loving on my beautiful baby girl. But, you know, when the DOJ does something as disrespectful as dropping the indictment, probably of the year, probably of the year, right? During a precious time as my maternity leave, Auntie E's got to get back in the studio. So with that said, Dustin Ross, my love, thank you so much for coming in on your off day to join us. Listen, we're going to call this one the Holding Court Diddy episode, the Diddy edition. Y'all know we have been covering this from the very start of this saga late last fall, and we had to get into everything, all the details from the indictment to the arrest to the bond hearing to the bond appeal and all the things. So that said, Dustin Ross, my darling, when you saw the breaking news, when you saw the arrest had been made, the indictment has finally come down, what were your initial thoughts?
Here we go. I just thought, here we go. Somebody finally Cassie pushed that first domino over, and all the rest of them fell until we got to this point. I think that for me, the big aha moment, or the actual part that I had to reconcile and begin to grieve Diddy, because I was a huge Puff Daddy fan. He meant a lot to me growing up. And when I saw that video of him beating Cassie in that Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles, that's where I began my grieving process. So this is just the culmination of all of that stuff. And I knew that everything that we saw and heard that was purely reprehensible will culminate to this. And here we are.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, right, Dustin, because of course we here on Holding Court, we've been covering it from moment to moment as each piece of the news and the alleged crimes have come down, right? And we've been made aware of them as the public. So of course that Intercontinental Hotel video you're referencing, that was surveillance taken back in the year 2016. And so remember, we did an episode of Holding Court. So jurors, if you missed it or you need a refresher, go back and listen to that.
Go back.
Season 3. No, honestly, y'all, listen, we came in on the off day. We broke hiatus for this bonus episode because that's how much y'all mean to us, quite frankly, right? How much making sure we're up to speed and up to date and keeping y'all consistent and current on all this shit. But this is dense. Okay, the word I'm going to use here is dense. This is a lot of facts to comb through. These are a lot of different charges. There's civil charges. Now we have, legitimate criminal charges for the first time here when it relates to Sean Combs. So you're going to have to go through some of these archival episodes and really get all of that context, all of that background, so that what we talk about here today in this brand new episode, this Boney Diddy edition episode, so that you can put these pieces together. So remember, Dustin, we were talking about that video you're talking about. A lot of people were wondering, well, why is this not going to lead? This direct videotape, why are there not charges coming from that, right? And the reason why, jurors, again, is because the statute of limitations had already run. Again, even Auntie, you got to go back and listen to the episode, but we talked especially about it. The point was the statute of limitations had run, so there was no direct crime that could be charged from that video in isolation. But here's the key, Dustin. We probably here's the key, Dustin. I certainly anticipated that the video would not be in vain. Okay, so now we're seeing that video was cited and used in this particular criminal indictment, the one that we're getting into today. So let's run that down. So we got charges, we have a timeline, and of course, yours, we're not going to leave you without giving you some analysis around what to look for in the future. Where does this the United States of America v. Sean Combs, and that's the caption, y'all.
Damn.
The United States of America v. Sean Combs. Where does this case go? All right, so the very latest in the United States v. Sean Combs, bail has been denied, and it's been denied now for a second time. So outright, when Sean Combs and his legal team asked for bail, they were denied. They said, let's try it again with a different judge. The judge actually, y'all, that's going to be hearing the meat of the case, the judge that's actually going to be sit and hearing and ruling on all of these federal charges against Sean Combs. And that judge also said, what? Mr. Combs, you're denied. So that means that Sean Combs is going to remain in jail. He's going to be in pre-trial custody is what we call it until trial. He's down the street from us, Dustin, right? He's down there in Brooklyn. Yep. In the Metropolitan Detention Center, where, you know, some of the most notorious have been. What are your thoughts on that? Because, you know, we're going to reverse engineer. We'll get to the charges, of course, y'all. Don't worry about it. But let's just stick with this bail piece, Dustin, for a while, and the fact that Sean Combs will remain in custody and likely until his trial date.
They're scared of something, and I don't know what it is, right? So for him to offer up,
I do. We'll get it. But go ahead, though.
If anybody know, damn it, I know who does. But I don't know yet why they have denied it, because he offered up all this collateral. He offered up his home, all that shit, and so there's got to be some reason why they're saying no, that's not enough. We want to contain you and detain you until this shit goes to trial. So there's a reason why. I'm not sure why it is, but I know we're going to get to the bottom of it.
We're going to get to it right damn now. So it's a really good point you're making, Dustin, and a lot of people are feeling the same way. Well, this is an abnormal amount of kind of commitment Sean Combs and his legal team are making to ensure that he's not a flight risk, like you said. So let's go through them, right? And listen, it's not just, Dustin Ross. These are not just jurors saying what you're saying, Dustin. Legal scholars, my peers. I've seen many lawyers sitting on TV the last 24 hours acting surprised, saying, we're very surprised to see not one, but two judges. And keep that in mind, y'all. This is not just one subjective trier of fact. This is now two independent judges saying the same damn thing. Whatever could it be? Let's go through it. Okay, so my colleagues, Dustin, and my peers that do this for a living, that sit in these legal spaces and provide this brilliant analysis, they simply are forgetting the other half of the analysis. So let's run it back. We talk about this on Holding Court all the time as well. There's not one, but there are two prongs, jurors, to a bail bond analysis. The first we've addressed, flight risk, making sure that the defendant, in this case, Sean Combs, is going to come back to court. So how do you normally do that with all the things Sean Combs has done? They threw everything in the kitchen sink, right? Turning over his passport, offering up his children's passports. We don't see that normally, right? Like you said, paying off the $18 million Miami home. So that home will have no mortgage, so that they can put it up as collateral for the $50 million bond. We don't normally see that, right? Right? It is true, Dustin. His team argued very, very zealously on his behalf, so I'm gonna give them theirs. They did their job. His legal team, in terms of this bond, in terms of this bail hearing, rather, they are doing their job. They're saying, Your Honor, Mr. Combs has cooperated thus far with this investigation. We've known it's been an active, open investigation since at least when Cassie dropped the dime back in November, right? And we're coming up on almost a year, 9-10 months, right? And he's still cooperating. He has not fled the country. The times that he has gone even across state lines, Dustin Ross, they have made the investigators and the Federal Bureau and Homeland Security aware. They let them know per what they're supposed to do. So like, Your Honor, he's done everything to show you he's coming back to court. He's going to fight. He's going to clear his name. Our client is not a flight risk. What the judge is essentially saying in the rulings, plural, both denied, Dustin. That's only half. What's the other half? Will this defendant, if not detained pre-trial, because they have not been convicted of anything, and that's why we have a constitutional right to pretrial release. Let's connect those dots.
Mm-hmm.
Well, will that defendant, Dustin, remain a threat to public safety? That's the other half of the analysis. The flight risk piece is only one half, y'all. And let's say he satisfied that half. I think that that's right. I think there's enough compelling evidence here that says he's no longer a flight risk, not in a real way. He's done too much to prove. Listen, he got too much at stake. He got to come back and fight these charges. Yeah, I mean, unless he's going to live like Roman Polanski on the lam for the next 30, 40 years, he's got to come back, right? Stand, clear his name or get or whatever. So it's not a flight risk concern, Dustin.
Right.
It's a threat to the continued safety of society and the public that the judges are concerned with. And that is why he's been denied bail once and now twice.
So let me ask you this, Ebony.
Yeah,
right?
Go for it. Yep.
So like, is that him being considered a threat to public, a continued threat to public safety, that ties directly into them charging him with running an organization, right? Because it's not so much about him leaving it, it's about what he's able to do from outside of police custody as far as fucking up the outcome of the rest of the trial. Is that correct?
Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Somebody give Dustin Ross a prize.
Okay.
Somebody give him a prize. No, because that's exactly right. It's his reach is what I hear you saying, right, D?
Yeah.
His ability to still have reach beyond the four corners of his home.
Yeah.
Right. So, and also let's keep in mind, this was also argued by the prosecution, brilliantly, I say. So many of the crimes we're talking about in the underlying indictment, Dustin, happened within his home. They happened at his damn house, or they happened in hotel rooms. They were contained. So that's not reassuring, that he's going to be essentially on house arrest, because that was something else his team offered up that he would be willing to do to conform and show not a flight risk, right? Is that we'll have like 24-hour monitoring, essentially create his own version of home arrest. Well, half the shit that you're accused of doing, half the crimes of violence and sexual predatory nature and assault happened within your damn house. So that gives no relief to the court. The other piece, and you touched on it right then too, Dustin, his ability to potentially intimidate, coerce, harass other witnesses that involve this case, these underlying indictments. It was specifically named, and we'll get to it in a second when we talk about all the other civil things that he's got going on, that one of the members of Dirty Money, is that the name of the group?
Yeah.
One of the members of Dirty Money, the young lady is named Kalina Harper. She's bandmates with Don Richard, who many of us of our generation know, of course, from Danny Kane, that apparently Sean Combs called Kalina Harper 58 damn times. That's the allegation. Called her phone 58 times, Dustin, just in the last 2 weeks, because 2 weeks ago, Don Richard, she filed a civil claim against Sean Combs, talking about how he, was forceful and violent and harassing her. When she dropped her civil lawsuit, apparently Puff got on the phone calling Kalina Harper to silence her. And then Kalina Harper put out an Instagram post essentially saying, I'm paraphrasing, but y'all go look it up, essentially saying, Don's experience wasn't my experience. So it was like a murky, I ain't in it.
Yeah,
it was kind of an
much.
I ain't in it.
It
Yeah,
separated
I
her.
ain't
She
in it.
distanced herself from it
She
without
distanced herself. Yeah.
identifying any behaviors or saying that's basically what she did. She distanced herself from it without implicating him. Yeah.
She did. Now, listen, that could be true because, none of us were there. It could be true that wasn't her experience. The point is, the court is not going to take a risk, Dustin, of his ability to do shit like that. And it's a little harder to call somebody 58 times, if indeed that happened, when you're inside of when you're in pretrial detention.
Don't call me 58 times. If I don't answer by that second ring, you better text me and just pray about it. You know what I'm saying? 58 times. God damn. He wanted to get her. He wanted to get a hold to her and influence her.
And she's just one person, right?
Yeah.
And what we know is that this thing has far-reaching tentacles. It will involve many, many, many individuals, many, many clusters, Dustin, of individuals. Because why do we know that? The indictment told us so, right? So it's going to touch those, that had connections to Bad Boy. It's going to touch those that have and had connections to Comb Enterprises, Combs Global,
Mm-hmm.
potentially Revolt. It's named in the indictment, his
Mm-hmm.
television network, all of the businesses and the enterprises. We're talking about an enterprise situation here, both criminal and kind of broadly, that the state is looking to prove. So,
Yeah.
y'all, that's why, if you're wondering, well, damn, Harvey Weinstein had pretrial release. Bill Cosby had pretrial release. Many people, I believe, the brother DJ Envy made this argument on The Breakfast Club, and he's not the only one. Many people, I said, well, I don't get it. Why is Puff being treated differently? That's why. Because apparently, at least the legal perception right now, Dustin, is that Sean Combs's reach, his reach is too vast, and his ability to intimidate, silence, and compromise other witnesses and other victims as well. Victims and witnesses are both the concern here as this case moves forward. It's not a risk the court is willing to take. Thus, denied. The judge said, not on my watch. Not on my watch. So that's where we are with that, y'all. So that's the bail piece. We're gonna move on now. And talk about some of the recent shit. Let's get to that. All right, so we all kind of remember September 16th. It was all just a week ago, right?
Right.
Sean Combs arrested in Manhattan, right? In our city, right? And let's just take a beat, Dustin, and talk about it, because you referenced it when I asked you your first impression of seeing all of this go down in real time, right? We are of the generation, and many of our jurors are, where, the making the band era of Puff, right? So watching this man and his hazing of
hungry, young,
young
talent.
Yes. Talented folks making people's dreams come true, sending folks over the bridge to go get junior cheesecake
on
slices,
feet.
Literally on feet, and all of that. So it's like Manhattan, New York City, Harlem specifically, and Sean P. Diddy Combs is a real thing. So the fact that ultimately his arrest and this trial will take place right here in New York City, I think that's worth noting, right?
It's poetic.
It literally is.
Yeah.
It literally is. So he's arrested here in Manhattan. Obviously, we know that there were raids and things. Part of this investigation took place in Miami as well, in Los Angeles. But ultimately, it's going to be the Southern District of New York, this particular federal district, that will lead this prosecution. The one that we've seen and heard from so far, black man by the name of U.S. Attorney Damian Williams. Thoughts on him, Dustin?
Praying for the best. You know what I mean? He's got a lot on him, and he's going to feel a lot of pressure as this trial proceeds. Him being a black man.
You think that was by design?
I do, personally. I think it was by design so that they can kind of squash that conversation before it even gets started. You know what I mean? About, the judge was unfair because of race, blah, blah, blah. They squashed that early. This is definitely intentional on behalf of the feds, that he is the prosecutor that's over this case. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for sure. I mean, I think most people probably put it together, but just in case you missed it absolutely. That when prosecutors' offices are deciding who's going to lead this particular file that comes through the pipeline, those are part of the considerations. You better believe Chris Darden was handpicked to sit alongside at that table with Marsha Clark when they were trying to O.J. Simpson. This is the same exact thing. They're looking to take that issue, as you just said, Dustin, off the table. So this is black man versus black man in terms of that. Now, let's not get it fucking twisted. We know this is the United States federal government.
Right. He's a face. He's a face.
He's a proxy.
Yeah,
he's a proxy. Exactly. But that said, him, how he conducts himself, Dustin, both in the press and in the courtroom, will go a long way via how both the judge and the jury, the actual jury, once they're selected and seated, if it gets that far, and certainly the public will perceive the credibility of this prosecution. So as you say, a lot riding on the handling and the demeanor and just the energy that we see from the prosecuting attorney here, Damian Williams. I'm going to get to some of the things he said very specifically in a minute, because it's going to tell us where this case will go ultimately. But let's get to the fact that he was arrested. We know that the indictment was then unsealed, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes, those documents remain sealed but not in this case. I think the
What
public
determines
interest.
that, Ebony?
Yeah, yeah. Basically, it's a few things, but one of the things I think driving it here is just the mere public concern. Like it's of such high
Mm-hmm.
nature of public concern, and he's such a hugely high profile individual.
Right.
And there's so many eyeballs on it, so there's almost a benefit, if you will, to unsealing it for the prosecution, to allow more transparency. So that's just some of it. But ultimately, if they wanted to keep it shut, that could have happened. But there was a choice here to go ahead and unseal that so that everyone can kind of read along, if you will, in real time to see what the charges are, what the elements are, what some of this evidence looks like, and we can all follow it in real time. So we know that the federal prosecutors have charged Tim. Let's go. He's got exactly 3 counts. So he's got racketeering conspiracy. That's a maximum sentence, y'all, of life. That carries a potential life sentence. He's got sex trafficking that also can theoretically carry a life sentence. That's the maximum. The minimum on that is 15 years for the sex trafficking piece. And then there's a transportation to engage in prostitution. So that's transporting people across state lines for the sake of prostitution. That is a 10-year maximum. Of course, that's going specifically to the allegation that Sean Combs transported female victims and commercial sex workers, those being men, in some cases as well, across state lines on multiple occasions with the intent that they engage in prostitution. It's a lot. Were the charges themselves surprising, or did that track for you, Dustin, when you saw which charges they brought against him?
It tracked for me, but this is where things got kind of gray for me, right? Because it tracked for me, and while I've seen certain things and read Cassie's, that multi-page complaint, a multi-page lawsuit, read what they've charged him with, it just looks like the violence piece, right?
Yeah, but the hitting, the slapping,
the slapping,
the dragging by the hair,
the forcible, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Forcing people to participate. That's what it looks like turned all of this into a crime, correct? Because a lot of the conversation you hear people having is, okay, well, when does it become criminal to be a quote unquote freak or have, an extreme sexual lifestyle? But it looks like the fact that this was organized and also force was exercised in order to make some of this happen, make really all of this happen. That is the element that makes this a crime. Is that correct, Ebony?
That is largely correct. And I mean, of course, sit down and shut the fuck up, Faison Love. That's one of the people, sitting on the internet making that argument that you speak of, right, Dustin? This whole,
right.
Since when is it a crime to be a freak? Knock it off. Knock it off. And let me say what I mean by knock it off. Knock it off that you're going to be so obtuse as to sit here and read one paragraph of this indictment and think that this is really just about a freak off in the sense of
not
an orgy. Yeah, I think that's what's happening too, Dustin, right? People are conflating the semantics here. They're hearing the salacious nature of, well, the prosecutor references a freak off in the indictment, and then they're going to their colloquial understanding of what a freak off could be. Okay, we're not talking about what you did back in college, sir and ma'am. Okay, we're not talking about what you do on your weekends. We're not talking about what you do in the summertime. This is not talking about criminalizing and trying to lock somebody up for life because they wanted to have group sex.
Right.
This is not what that's about.
Right.
This is not even about the 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubrication. And I think I get why it's in the indictment, but I kind of hate that that's where so many people are staying in the indictment.
I do too, Ebony. I do too.
Right? Yeah, like people are stuck on that piece and kind of the meme culture of it all. Y'all get past that shit.
And
grow up, get unstuck, and read the rest of the fucking document because it's a legal document.
Right.
And you're exactly right. It's those pieces. And I don't want to downplay the sex part too, right? Because the sexual conduct, because of the way in which it was done, which was by force, fraud, or coercion. Okay. And what do I mean by that specifically? It's in the indictment, y'all. You got to keep reading. When you videotape someone having sex. So let me do this, Dustin. Let me extract the physical violence piece for 1 second. I'm gonna put it back in. So keep it close. But let me just extract it for 1 second and prove how it's a crime either way. So let's say he's not hitting, slapping, punching, spitting on, pulling, dragging. Let's take that off for one second, and let's say it's just the sex piece. And the prosecutor says specifically that Mr. Combs is facilitating the sex by literally buying plane tickets, train tickets, hotel rooms, stocking them full of the condoms, lubrication, whatever is needed to facilitate the actual sexual encounters. So Combs is facilitating that. He's also videoing it. He's videoing it for why? Maybe it's his own personal library and collection and pleasure, but also what they say specifically, Dustin, here's the coercion piece. He's videoing it to later blackmail some of these participants, some of these women victims, and some of these, I guess, male commercial sex workers, these male prostitutes, to enforce their silence. So now that's coercion.
Damn.
And elements of fraud. So even just those pieces before he lifts a hand to slap, punch, or kick anybody, it's still a crime.
It's already been a crime committed.
It's already a crime. Yeah. Now, if we manipulate the fact pattern, Dustin Ross, and we take you're not videotaping for the sake of blackmailing and forcing silence and compliance and complicity to your crime. Now we could argue maybe it is just group sex and we're just recording in the name of a keepsake. Maybe, but that's not what the prosecutors here are saying. They're saying, no, he was masturbating alongside, which again, that's not criminal, right? That's not criminal. But when you do it and you record it and you're cursing people out and you're threatening them, because that's what we have to believe.
Yeah.
Is underneath all of this. That's where we get to even just the sexual acts, Dustin, become criminal in nature because they're done at the hands of force, fraud, and coercion. Those are the three. That's not Auntie East saying it. That's not my analysis. That's what's in the damn indictment, y'all. Okay, so now let's go through the elements because and what you're doing is really, really critical, and that's why we're doing this episode, y'all. Y'all can read the news. Everybody can read the headlines. You can read the indictment. You don't need me for that. You don't need Dustin for that. What we're offering through this episode is the deep dive of what it all means.
Because there's been so much. There's so many details that are important in this case. And it's easy to forget shit or miss things or move past things quickly. But everything is so relevant to the outcome that we see now, which is being locked up. So
it all matters. It all matters. So let's go through the elements, y'all, one by one of what is required. I'm gonna just do the racketeering piece because the rest of it, because that's the biggest piece, the biggest charge, and that's why they're leading with it. It's the leading charge of the indictment. It's the leading count, is what we call it, of the indictment. The racketeering piece. Okay, y'all know it is RICO. Okay, we know that Rudy Giuliani, again, this New York connection, right? Don't forget New York is a player in all of this, y'all. New York is one of the players here. Rudy Giuliani really, really made this kind of a household thing, a RICO charge, because he used it to successfully prosecute aspects of the American mafia, which had evaded capture for years and years and years. And Giuliani said, well, if we can approach it through this systemic collective criminal enterprise lens, we can be successful. This, of course, was how they were able to successfully convict R. Kelly using a RICO statute. And now we're seeing the exact same kind of mechanism here at play when it comes to Sean Combs. So RICO / racketeering, what does it require? What does the government have to prove, Dustin, beyond a reasonable doubt? They got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt 5 things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different what we call elements of the crime. Here they go. The first, that an enterprise existed. Okay, so what does that mean? Now, when I say enterprise, you think what? Business, Dustin?
Yeah, an organization.
Organization.
Yeah, an organization of persons who have certain abilities or access to get some. They all are working together to get some sort of illegal goal accomplished. That's
exactly
looks like.
It. And it's nothing more than that, and it's nothing less than that.
A network of people. Yeah.
A network of people, and a network of people could be 3.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. Okay. It doesn't have to be hundreds. It doesn't have to be thousands. It doesn't have to be across the world. It could just be, it could be a handful, literally, of individuals, a couple or a few, or it could be tens, it could be hundreds, it could be thousands. But all it is like you said, it's a collection of individuals to get something afoot. To execute what the federal statute calls an undertaking. Okay, they don't have to be in formal relationship with each other. So there's no requirement, y'all, for the state to prove that this was all done under the formal employees of Bad Boy or the formal employees of Combs International. None of that is required. Simply that Sean Combs and a couple others approached an undertaking. So when it comes to that first element, that an enterprise existed, I don't believe the prosecution's going to have any proof problems. Okay? I believe that part is pretty obvious. It's pretty self-substantiating. Okay? And we're going to see who some of these other individuals are in a moment. So hold tight. For those of you wondering, if it's RICO and it's this big conspiracy and it's this big organization, why ain't nobody else being charged? Just wait for it. Just wait for it, y'all. We're going to get to it. Okay, number 2, y'all, second element of the racketeering piece. What the enterprise did, what they affected, touched interstate commerce, money across state lines. That's an easy one, right? The minute Sean Combs says somebody else in my organization or my reach, go buy a plane ticket to put this one, male or female, commercial sex worker or otherwise, or just artist I'm looking at signing, or person I just want to make them think they have a chance to be signed, whatever it is, put them on an airplane and fly them from Miami to my place in LA for a freak off. The minute that happens, that's money across interstate lines. That's interstate commerce. So that satisfies the second element of the racketeering piece. Go ahead, Dustin.
I was just going to say that can actually look like just something as simple as going from New York to Jersey too, right? The state line is a state line.
It's called a state line.
Yeah.
Excellent point. Excellent. And we know that he had places in Alpine, New Jersey, I believe, and all these things. So, of course, so that piece, easy peasy. Okay, we know it's a whole bunch of state lines at play. And I don't believe it's just state lines, but I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so that's number 2. Second element, I believe, will be easily satisfied by the government. The third, that the defendant was associated with or employed by the enterprise. So this is just positioning, right? This is just saying that Sean Combs is Sean Combs, and as Sean Combs is associated with this group of people, and the indictment is saying he's the leader. Okay, that he is the front, he is the premier, the executive decision maker when it comes to how these people and this activity came afoot. Okay, now this one's really easy because there's a formal aspect to it, that Sean Combs is indeed the CEO. He is the boss of the enterprise. And again, y'all remember that's a loose meaning of enterprise. So it means, of course, he's the boss the boss of Bad Boy, is the boss of Comb Enterprises to this day, was the head of the television network and all these other things. But it also says, as it relates to these people, who we will find out who these people are shortly, don't worry about it, he was in charge of them. They were all acting in concert, meaning together, at his request. That's all that element requires. Easy one. Lay
Do you
up.
think we're going to recognize any of those names, Ebony?
What you think? What you think?
I hope not.
I know.
I can't take it.
I really hope it's not going to be some people that have gone on. And I'm going to just say it like that. I'm going to move on to number 4. The defendant engaged in a pattern of racketeering activity. Okay, so a pattern we know just means more than once. Now, what is racketeering activity, you may ask? Great question. Let's run it down. Run it down. Could be murder. That's not the case here. So let's just take that off the table, at least thus far. Now, where are we seeing murder as one of the racketeering activity charges? The Young Thug trial.
Right. Yep.
That's over there in Atlanta with Young Thug.
Yep.
Okay. But that's not what we know so far in this case. So they will not be probably successful in proving murder, but they don't have to be, because they got what? Federal
Other
kidnapping.
shit.
Yeah, that could be one of them. Federal kidnapping, where you take someone and they're not free to leave, or they don't feel free to leave. The feel free to leave is normally the linchpin, y'all, of a kidnapping statute. So that means, again, hypothetically, the minute Sean Combs or someone working at the directive of Sean Combs takes a young lady or a man or whoever and says you need to, you're going to be in LA. You're going to be at this hotel. You're going to participate in this so-called freak off for 2, 3, 4, 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to leave until everybody, especially Mr. Combs, is satisfied. Okay. So that's not only sex trafficking. That's not only for coercion and this and that. That's kidnapping.
Damn.
Person not feeling free to leave. Now, they don't have to be handcuffed to the bed. It's not they don't have to literally not be free. If they don't feel free to leave, they feel if they leave, there is a severe consequence physically, emotionally, sexually, or otherwise to them,
Mm-hmm.
or even financially to them, because that's a part of it. That's a part of coercion. Oh, if you leave, I'm going to use this videotape to blackmail you with your family, your community, your church, your job. That's an aspect of coercion that goes into the kidnapping piece. Okay, so the federal kidnapping could be one of the possible racketeering activities. Gambling, not really seeing a lot of facts around that, so we'll move on to another possible one. Arson. Well, I was surprised to see the arson piece named in the Sean Combs indictment. Were you?
Yes and no, because when I initially thought arson, I was like, God, what did he burn down? But then I immediately remembered when Cassie had mentioned the alleged situation where he blew up Kid Cudi's car when he found out that they had a connection. That was the arson piece to me immediately. Do you think there's more that we don't know about, or do you think that that's directly relating to that piece that we know about?
I think you're right. I think it's likely that's probably the big piece, because that's the big piece we know, and it was named for a reason. But that was surprising to me, because I like it's similar to what you just said. When I saw, I immediately thought, well, what? Whose house did he burn down?
Right.
Damn,
I'm like,
what are we
damn,
doing?
what do we,
Yeah, what in the, but I think, that Kid Cudi car piece, and it could be some other things like that, like maybe other vehicles, other personal property items, not necessarily burning down houses, but shit, we don't know. We don't know how far this thing reaches, so we all about to mess around and find out together. Bribery, y'all. Bribery is one of the possible racketeering activities, and clearly, that's named in the indictment, right? Where the prosecution is saying that Sean Combs not only withheld money on occasions to force and coerce people, he also gave people money, right? And I think this is a part of what is presumed to be under the 58 calls to the young lady from Dirty Money, right? I'm buying people's silence, offering them big lump sums of cash to be quiet, to be complicit, to make sure that his reputation and his positioning remain untouched. So that's the bribery piece. So y'all get it. There's others: extortion, blackmail, dealing in obscene matters. Obviously, that's the videotapes themselves, right? Or the audio tape. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's just dealing in obscene matters is its own racketeering activity. And the point of this, y'all, and I'm going to wrap it up, the fifth element needed to be proven by the state to get this RICO conviction is simply that 2 of these racketeering activities took place. All right. I'll read it to you formally. The defendant conducted or participated in the conduct of the enterprise in a pattern of racketeering activity. So that's the 4th element. Okay. In the commission of at least two acts of racketeering activity as set forth in the indictment. So I just listed 5 or 6 for y'all.
Yeah.
There's a couple more available. They easily have at least, to me, by my count, 4. By my count, 4, but maybe more.
Keywords at least. Because they can, let's be clear, they can make this what it needs to be. They have enough, he's giving them enough shit that they can identify these behaviors into as however they need to in order to make it qualify as racketeering. So
let's be clear, Dustin Ross. They've already made it.
It's done. It's done.
Now we're not saying he's cooked and throw away the key and all that shit. But in terms of, I just walked y'all through, and that's not opinion. That's not perspective. That's not these stupid ass predictions I'm tired of hearing about on the internet. Okay, that is simply Attorney Eboni K. Williams, as licensed by the state of North Carolina to this day, okay, going through the federal elements. There are 5 of them with the RICO statute. And I just laid it out for y'all. And don't forget, there's 2 other counts of the indictment, both the sex trafficking piece as well as the interstate travel for the sake of prostitution. It's a 3-count indictment. I just went through the first count, the lead count, the one that carries the life sentence, and I walked you through the elements. So figure the rest of it out, y'all. That's it. So this is not about Sean Combs being treated differently. This is not about, and I'm not even saying he's convicted, but I'm simply walking you through what is required. I'm simply walking you through what is required for said conviction. If they prove those 5 elements, and they do have to prove all 5. So this is not a cakewalk necessarily for the prosecution. They got to prove. If they don't prove even one of the elements, Dustin, it's not guilty. It's not guilty. But if they prove all 5 elements beyond a reasonable doubt, it's guilty, at least on the racketeering, and therein lies the possibility. Now, he doesn't have to get life. I doubt, of course, he probably will not. But it is a maximum sentence of life in prison on even one conviction on one count of criminal federal racketeering.
Damn, man. Damn.
Yeah.
That's all I can say is just damn. What a fall. Like, this is just watching this house of cards fall in real time is fascinating. It's heartbreaking. And it is just stunning for a person like me who what Puff brought to the media and brought to entertainment.
Brought to fashion.
Brought to
fragrance. Just brought to everything. Brought
it
to
just
everything.
was in,
and the artists that he that are tangential to him, right? Like, we can't think of 112 or Total or Faith or Little Kim and it not be a Puff thing. Because it's a Puff thing.
Whew, yeah. So it's a lot.
Late summer, early fall days are my favorite. They're really the best, right? The best weather, and it's also still daylight savings time. Fuel up for those perfect days with good food. Factor can help you carry your wellness routine from summer straight into fall with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor meals are fresh, chef-crafted, and dietitian approved. There's no prep, no mess, and the meals are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great-tasting meals. We're talking delicious restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat a well-balanced meal. Head to factormeals.com/HoldenCourt50 and use code HoldenCourt50, and you'll get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's HoldenCourt50 at factormeals.com/HoldenCourt50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Auntie, where does this go next, right? That's a valid question. That's a valid inquiry. Now, none of us have a crystal ball. We don't do a ton of speculating here on Holden Court. Go to your other favorite bloggers and pages for that. But let's look at what they've already told us, Dustin, because he told us something, the United States Assistant U.S. Attorney Damian Williams. He said this is this man's words. Today, he is charged with racketeering and sex trafficking offenses.
Today.
That's what he said. Today, if you have been a victim of Combs's alleged abuse, or if you know anything about his alleged crimes, we urge you to come forward. This investigation is far from over. Those were the words spoken, y'all, by U.S. Attorney Damian Williams at the time of the indictment when all of this came down. So the man said flat out, it ain't over.
Yeah.
It ain't over. I do not believe this is the conclusion, Dustin Ross, of all the charges. I believe we will see more charges. We may very well see a superseding indictment. What is that? That's simply an indictment that comes down sometime within the next 6 months. They'll dismiss this one, and then they'll put that superseding on your ass, and then that has even more charges. It's more dense. There are more elements. There are more pieces of evidence. There are more witnesses.
So how does that work, Ebony? This statement or this help me understand how that works, because it seems like when they release an indictment, that's damning and final, right? But you said that can be replaced.
Well, you were right by half of it.
It's damning, but it ain't
necessarily final.
Okay,
correct.
Got it.
Correct.
They can reimagine that.
Yeah, and you're making these. You're asking all the right questions because this
Mm-hmm.
is the way we've all been conditioned to think about crime,
Right.
right? We
Right.
think when we see that handcuff cakewalk, the perp walk rather, Freudian slip, Freudian slip. My bad, my bad. But when we see that perp walk and we see you in cuffs and we see the indictment and we see the district attorney or the U.S. attorney who
Mm-hmm.
they give the big
Mm-hmm.
statement to the press and all that, we think that's it. We think that's, like you said, we think that is the conclusion. We think of that as the peak. We think of that as the climax of the whole thing.
Yeah. But
Ain't
it's not.
necessarily so. Ain't necessarily so.
Okay.
It could be, but it ain't necessarily so. And in this case, they're telling us flat out, Dustin, it ain't. It ain't. In fact, let's look at the timing, right? Because we all said, well, most of us that were paying attention, we said we knew something would be coming down. We knew it would likely be in the calendar year of 2024. Now,
Mm-hmm.
let's be clear. They could have easily kept this to themselves, which is, listen, I'm hand to God. I have seen the federal government take up to 5 years on an investigation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And they do that because that's how meticulous the federal government is when it comes to their prosecution. They just will not be rushed, Dustin. They
Yeah.
will not be rushed. They
Yeah.
won't. They won't. They don't care about your anxiety. They don't care about your lawyers calling up there and pestering them. I know because I've done it on behalf of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, the weather's nice outside.
Mm-hmm.
What y'all looking at over there?
Mm-hmm.
Who y'all talking to over there? Is there anything we can do to cooperate, help y'all out? That's the kind of shit we do as lawyers. Because we're trying to do a few things in that type of activity, Dustin. We're trying to see what y'all got, who you're talking to. We're also trying to see, let's just get this shit over with. Like, I'm gonna just take just a moment of levity. This type of crime ain't for me. No type of crime is for me, Dustin. But I can't.
But damn sure not this shit
I
here.
can't take this. I'll just go turn myself in. Like, let's just go. Let's just go.
It's
Let's
too
go.
much. Yeah,
It's too much.
that's
I
not
can't
worth
sleep.
it.
I can't sleep. I can't eat.
All this
What
searching and shit.
Absolutely.
No, so
Wake
yeah,
it
it's
up
too
in
much for me
cold
too.
sweat. Yeah, but they don't give a damn. They will sit on you. They will sit on the people around you for years on end. I think it's interesting that they've chosen, and keyword is choice, not to do that here. As far as federal investigations, Dustin, of this scope and magnitude, this is relatively fast moving.
Yeah, it's moving quickly. I was thinking the same thing. Yep.
It's moving quick. Why is it moving quick? I think Damian Williams just gave us a clue because they now want the public support. They now want the public help, quite frankly, when it comes to putting the rest of this case together. They're saying that we're going to give you guys an appetizer, if you will. We're going to give you a sampling of what we've got so far, what we've put together on the whiteboard so far. Let's go back to where we get that damned and final shit from? Things like The Wire, right? Let's go back and reference that, where we see them for a whole season on the whiteboard putting pieces together. Okay, this person's in this person's organization. Okay, we know we got hand to hand here. Okay, we got such and such here. We got a body over here. And then at the very end, the season finale, everybody gets scooped up. Everybody gets carted away. They're doing it different here. They're saying, okay, we got this piece. We could sit on him for another 3, 4, 5, 7 years and get the rest of it ourselves. But fuck it. Let's let the people do some of this work for us. That's the nature of what we saw last week.
Man, okay. So, oh man. So, okay, Ebony. So what do you think that means, right? Obviously they have enough evidence and they've unearthed enough findings to lock this indictment in, to lock in these charges right now, the sex trafficking, the racketeering, right? Yeah. Are they hinging a whole, it just seems to me like there has to be more. There has to, it seems like they already have more. I don't think that they would depend on the public. Would they depend on the public's contribution to drive this thing home, or do they already have enough and they're just saying, we know there's more out there, so if you know something, come forward?
It's the latter.
Okay.
Let's be clear. Yeah. It's the latter. Like you said, let's be clear. Now, they're never going to undermine their own prosecution by coming out premature. So I don't mean to in any way insinuate that. No. They got it. They got it. Okay. This is now about running up the scoreboard.
Yeah.
This is now about running it up. Now I'm gonna go back to something that I said on a previous episode that a lot of people gave me a lot of energy around, including some I guess board attorneys,
Mm-hmm.
coming in the comments out of pocket and out of order.
Mm-hmm.
Because I said, and I stand on what I said, that I would not be surprised. I wouldn't put it past this whole enterprise, this whole indictment, this whole crime to have global reach, to cross into international waters. Why did I say that? Well, not necessarily mandated that Homeland Security take the lead on those types, but it's likely. It's likely.
You said that.
I said that, and I stand in it. And although we don't have it in this indictment, you know what we do have? Let me read it verbatim. I want y'all to go, those that like to really get into the nitty gritty of it, go to the indictment, go to count 1, racketeering conspiracy. I want you to go to paragraph 8. I'm going to read it to you verbatim. The Combs enterprise was engaged in and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. It then goes on to say, Dustin, that the Combs enterprise operated in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. That's just to establish proper jurisdiction in the federal prosecutorial district in which we're talking about, which that's why he's down the street in Brooklyn at the detention center now. But let me go back to the important part. Interstate and foreign commerce.
And foreign.
It could have said or. It could have said or, but it didn't. It said and.
Yeah. Clearly.
And it was repeated over and over and over again throughout the indictment. So I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. Okay. It could be that this thing is contained statewide. Could be.
Could be not. Who's to say?
Who's to say? So I'm going to leave it there, y'all. I got to go take care of my baby.
Yes, you do.
Don't say Auntie E left y'all hanging.
That's right.
Don't say Dustin Ross, you walked us this far. Where you at?
That's right.
We came back to the table. We came into the recording booth and we gave y'all a little bit more. And don't forget, it is their burden to prove. In the same way, it's the state's burden to prove on Trump. It's the state's burden, the United States government, rather, in this case, these are federal charges. It's on the government of the United States of America to prove it. They've got a job to do. It's their burden. I'm simply saying, for what we already know, I don't see a lot of proof problems for the government. I don't see them. So we'll see.
Man. All right. Well, I guess we're going to watch this shit play out. You know, God be with his children, and God be with first of all, God be with all the victims, and God be with his innocent children that don't have nothing to do with none of this shit.
Hey, let me slow you down. The innocent children.
The innocent children. Yep.
The innocent children. Some of y'all, no, let me stop. But listen, jokes aside, we're going to see on that too, right?
Damn.
We're going to see on that. So don't anybody think this is done. Don't anybody think it's over. Don't anybody think that anyone's necessarily getting away with anything, right? Because I see that argument. Like a lot of people like, well, sounds like he's a piece of shit, but where's everybody else? Why is nobody else? Relax. Y'all just need to relax. Been watching too much TV. And me too.
This is not entertainment.
This ain't clear. That. This is not an episode of Law and Order. This is not The Wire. This ain't Breaking Bad. Just it's they're approaching this in a very methodical way for some of the reasons Dustin and I, kind of walked you through. And that's it. That's all. Again, I think you're exactly right, Dustin. We're going to keep everybody lifted in prayer as it relates to the victims, anybody harmed by this. And I do want to put this piece on it to complicate it a little bit. When you're talking about sex trafficking and human trafficking, you do get into a murky area where victims become perpetrators. I'm going to say it again. Where victims become perpetrators. Where someone brought into the realm of Sean Combs in this case, came in originally in a victim capacity, right? And because of the narcotics, the drugs used to take people out of their state of mental capacity, because of the heavy level of force and coercion, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial blackmail, all the things, then those victims start perpetrating and helping advance the criminal activity.
That's the piece that scares me the most, and I'm just going to leave it there because there's a lot of people that he's connected to that seeing their downfall will be devastating. You know what I'm saying? And so although we want justice to be served, of course, I'm just saying what our experience would be like if certain names are attached to this thing by way of what you just spoke of, and that's the piece that has me the most nervous. It's
that's
that
the part that
piece
keeps
right
you up
there.
at night.
Yes,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. I get that.
Yep.
And how the government in this case handles that will be interesting.
Yep.
It'll be interesting. So we'll stay tuned on all of it. As always, what we ultimately want is justice to be served, and peace to all that were harmed. We're gonna leave it there for this episode, y'all. I love y'all. Dustin, I love you.
Yes, we do. You know I love you.
I love you. I am still on maternity leave. Still, Michael said if you can't feed the baby, don't have the baby. So I got to feed the baby.
You didn't have her.
Listen. I'm still on maternity leave, but we will be back, y'all. Don't worry. It's in a minute. It's just a minute, y'all. October 9th, we will be back with our regularly scheduled programming, dropping every Wednesday, new and hot for y'all. Apparently, it's gonna be just in fucking time.
Yes,
just
it is.
in time to give you all the latest as this Sean Combs case proceeds, as well as I think there's a little something called the presidential election afoot. I think it's a little something. And then we've got some criminal charges and everything going on with that too. So keep it right here on Holding Court. Until then, Dustin, my jurors, I love y'all. And Dustin, what you want the people to do?
I love you too. Read your terms and conditions. That's it. Read them.
Carefully, very carefully. Holding Court is produced by Uppity Productions. Host and executive producers here, Eboni K. Williams, yours truly, and the Dustin Ross. Executive producer in Dossie, McCraw. Our senior producer, Ashley Hobbs. Creative consultant, Jay Kleinberg. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any and everywhere you get your podcast.